Do you hear it? That sound? The narrator's voice is calm but weighted with unease. If you've ever stood alone in the woods at night, you know the one I mean. The whisper. Just on the edge of hearing. Some think it's the wind, others. A pause. Well, this is the story of what it really is. Ellie and Mark were no strangers to camping. A perfect pair of adventurers, they'd taken on everything from rocky cliffs to snowy peaks. But tonight, the forest near the isolated town of Granth Hollow whispered something different. A sense of foreboding that they both ignored. An old man in the town's lone gas station had warned them as they stocked up on supplies. "You'll want to leave them woods by sundown," he rasped. "It's not safe after dark." Mark chuckled, brushing him off. "Urban legends don't scare us." But Ellie noticed the man didn't smile. Instead, he muttered, "They'll come when the shadows touch the trees." By the time the duo reached their campsite deep in the woods, the sun hung low, painting the trees in eerie golds and reds. Ellie couldn't shake the memory of the man's tone. "Do you think he was serious?" she asked. Mark shrugged. "People in small towns thrive on this kind of stuff." Then, just as the sun disappeared behind the horizon, Ellie thought she heard it. A low murmur, not quite the wind and not quite words. By the firelight, they talked and laughed, distracting themselves from the uneasy atmosphere. Mark told jokes, Ellie cooked beans over the flame, but the laughter faded when the whispers started again, louder this time, coming from every direction. Ellie froze. "Mark, do you hear that?" His face turned serious as he nodded. "Probably just animals." But Ellie shook her head. "No, listen. It's like voices." The sound was neither animal nor human. It grew closer, circling. Yet there was no movement in the bushes, no crunch of leaves. The air grew heavy, charged with static, and the shadows near the trees began to shift unnaturally. Mark, always the skeptic, stood up. "I'll prove it's nothing." He disappeared into the dark, flashlight beam bouncing between the trees. The whispers grew louder, almost a chant now, and Ellie's heart raced. She grabbed her phone, recording the strange sound. 10 minutes passed, then 15. No sign of Mark. When Ellie called out, the woods went silent, too silent. No whispers, no insects, not even the rustle of leaves. And then, the scream. Mark's scream. Cut through the night like a knife. Ellie ran in the direction of the scream, her phone's flashlight shaking as she moved. She found Mark crumpled on the ground near the base of a massive tree. He was alive, but his eyes were wide with terror, his hands clutching something carved into the bark, a series of strange symbols that seemed to writhe as she stared at them. "What happened?" Ellie demanded, shaking him. Mark whispered 2 words, "They're here." Before Ellie could respond, the whispers returned, louder and angrier. The symbols on the tree began to glow faintly, and Mark's body convulsed violently. The shadows themselves seemed to crawl toward them, tendrils of darkness reaching for Mark. Ellie grabbed him, dragging him back toward the campsite. At the fire, Mark finally managed to speak. His voice was hoarse, his words broken. "I saw them. Not human, eyes like fire. They whispered. They said we trespassed." Ellie tried to calm him down, but she could see the truth in his eyes. He wasn't lying. Their flashlight beams caught movement in the trees, shapes shifting unnaturally, almost humanoid but wrong. As the shadows grew closer, Ellie remembered the old man's words. "Leave them woods by sundown." They tried to flee, but no matter which way they ran, the woods seemed to shift, leading them back to the campsite. The fire sputtered and died, and with it, their hope. That's when Ellie saw it. An enormous figure emerging from the darkness, its form an impossible void, swallowing the light around it. Its voice was a chorus of whispers. "You should not be here." The voice echoed in their heads, not their ears. Ellie screamed as tendrils of shadow wrapped around her legs. Mark tried to fight, but the creature moved with unnatural speed, dragging him into the darkness. His screams were drowned by the deafening whispers. Ellie, desperate, remembered the symbols on the tree. Pulling a pocket knife, she carved the same shapes into the dirt, hoping it would offer protection. For a moment the shadows paused, retreating slightly, but the creature laughed. Futile. It lunged, and everything went black. Ellie woke up alone at the edge of the woods, the rising sun casting its gentle light. Mark was gone, the campsite empty. She stumbled back to the town, her mind reeling. At the gas station, the old man shook his head sadly. "You're lucky you made it out. Most don't." Ellie tried to explain what had happened, but the man simply replied, "Now you know, they don't like visitors." Years later, Ellie would find herself drawn to forests again, always seeking answers, but never staying after sundown.